Hello friends, SentinalH here, back with another Civilization 6 theory crafting video. In this video, we're going to be talking a lot about food. We've been doing, with the mega city, a lot of internal trading, and we've had some food issues, and it raises the importance of knowing how food works in Civ 6 so that you can plan out your cities appropriately. Remember that the city of Ulm that I had, that had some food issues because of improper planning, as well as the main city of Aachen had essentially no tiles left around it for food production other than, I believe, 2. So knowing how food works is very important. So in this video, we're going to go over it. And at the end of this, you're going to know everything you need to know about food. So we'll get started with the most obvious thing, and that's farms. So obviously, if you want food, then you build farms. In the beginning of the game, they are a straight up +1 food to the tile, and that's all they do. But as you go through the tech tree, you do unlock 2 technologies that directly buff farms, and they're pretty big. And the way that they buff farms are through adjacency bonuses. In Civ 5, there were technologies you unlocked that just gave farms an increase in food production. However, in Civ 6, that's not the case. There is no technology that just straight up provides extra food to all your farms. That's all about adjacency now. That means that if my farms, for example, are all spread out. If this is a city, by the way, this is the bounding box for a single city. If my farms are all spread out like this and none of them are adjacent to each other, they're only ever going to provide +1 food. They're never going to have their food output increased through technology, which is really bad because these increases that you get from technology are really good, and you're really going to want them so that you can make your cities more efficient. You want to spend as few tiles as possible dedicated to food so that you can use most of your tiles for other things, because, you know, food isn't all that interesting except that it keeps your population from starving. So you don't want half your tiles being covered by food. You want to have as few as possible. So the way that you do that is by making your farms adjacent to each other. And the reason for this is because of the first technology you'll unlock that buffs the farms, which is Feudalism. Okay, once you unlock Feudalism, which you actually can boost by building 6 farms, Feudalism provides +1 food to every farm that has 2 farms adjacent to it. Now, the game doesn't say it that simply. The game says +1 food to farms when 3 farms are adjacent. I think they could have worded that a bit better, but essentially what this means is that if a farm has at least 2 farms next to it, it gains an additional +1 food. In this example right here, if we ignore the base food that these tiles are going to have, this farm over here provides +1 food. But once we get Feudalism, this one still provides only +1. But this farm provides +2, as well as this farm, as well as this farm. Okay? Now, if we had, for example, these 2 farms next to each other, that's not going to get the buff. These farms are still only going to produce 1 food each. But essentially what you want to do is you want to either have 3 farms right next to each other, or you can have 4 farms next to each other. And those are all going to gain that bonus from Feudalism so that each one of these gets an extra food. Okay, which is really good. So that's going to be your main farm boost for a large portion of the game, because it's going to be a bit before you get Feudalism, but once you get Feudalism, it's going to be a while before you get the next upgrade. So having your farms at least in 3 next to each other or 4 next to each other is going to be very beneficial. Now, in this arrangement, this farm right here is not going to get extra food. Okay, the bonus is just 1 food if it has at least 2 adjacent farms. So this farm and this farm, they're not going to get extra food. The next upgrade to food that you acquire is replaceable parts. Now, replaceable parts is huge. What it does is it gives you +1 food for every adjacent farm. So, whereas Feudalism only gave you +1 food if you had 2 adjacent farms, replaceable parts says for every farm next to it, you'll get an extra food. Which means that in this 3 farm example, each of these farms is going to get more food. However, it's not just going to go up to 3. This farm has 2 adjacent farms. It's going to get 4 food. In fact, all 3 of these, they're going to end up having 4 food in addition to whatever the base yield is of their tile. Because they get +1, so they go up to 2 because they have 2 farms from Feudalism. But once you get replaceable parts, there's 2 farms here, so they get 2. Which is great. Now, this really skyrockets when we have the diamond-shaped farm over here. So if I take another farm and stick it right here, then this farm would get, actually not 3, this farm would get 4. Doop. Because it gets, it starts with 1, it gets 1 from Feudalism, and it starts, yeah, and then it gets 2 from replaceable parts. However, now this farm is adjacent to 3 farms, so it suddenly gets 5 food, and this farm suddenly gets 5 food. Okay, so now we're getting into a lot of food bonuses for these farms. These farms are adding 5 food each, and these farms are adding 4 food each. If we add more farms, we get even more food. So if we put a farm here, ignoring this farm here gets another food, and this farm here gets another food. And as you can imagine, if you keep adding farms, it keeps adding food to all of the farms. I'm not going to keep adding these little food icons, but in this example, this center farm is starting with 1, it's gaining another through Feudalism, and then it's getting 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So this farm would be producing 8 food. This farm would be producing 2, 3, 4, 5, and all these would be producing 5, for a total of 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 38 food in these 7 tiles, which is a lot more than you could get if your farms were all scattered around. So in Civ 6, the thing to keep in mind is that when you're building your farms at a city, you want those farms next to each other. Even if there's a nice tile over on the other side of your city where you might want to put a farm, don't do it. Put your farms next to each other so you can gain these bonuses. Look at your terrain around your city, decide where you're going to place your districts, decide where you want various things like that, and then pick out a spot that you don't really need for anything else, where you're going to just dump all your farms right next to each other, because you really want to get these adjacency bonuses. They're really, really good. Now, what other ways are there to get food in the game? There's a couple more upgrades, tile upgrades that will generate food. One of them is from India, and that's the stepwell. Now, the stepwell is an interesting tile improvement. By default, it can be built on any tile, by the way. By default, this, I think, actually, no, wait, it can't be built on hills, I don't think. I don't know. You can't build it on floodplains, I know that. By default, this generates 1 food. Doop. That's all it does by default, which doesn't sound all that good. However, once you stick a holy site next to it, it suddenly generates a faith. Boop. Now, when it comes to food, what this thing does is that if you put a farm next to it, it adds another food. Boop. So with a farm and a holy site adjacent to a stepwell, it produces 2 food plus 1 faith, plus whatever tile it's on, which if it's grassland, it's suddenly producing 4 food, okay, right from the start of the game. And if you remember, it takes a farm 1, and then, well, it's producing 2 food by itself. It takes feudalism for farms to do that. So if in the early game, building stepwells can allow you to get more food out of the tile than you could from a farm until you get feudalism and you have your farms next to each other in the little triangle formation. So until feudalism, the stepwell can generate the most food in the game. Now, the reason for that is that putting additional farms next to the stepwell does not add extra food. I did test this myself, and it doesn't work. The stepwell just gains one extra food if it has at least one farm next to it. So unfortunately, you can't surround your stepwell with farms in order to get a ton of food on that tile. It doesn't work that way. The big use of stepwells is to build them on desert, because it's a way for you to cause desert tiles to produce food and faith. Which is extra good if you have desert folklore, because building your holy site in the desert will generate extra faith for the holy site, for those tiles. So, you know, if you're India and you have desert, stepwells can allow you to get food on those tiles, which is really great, especially once you get Petra, if you get Petra, and those desert tiles become even better. Now, other than just producing the food yourself through tiles, like farms, through tile improvements, there are two other ways that you can get food, and that's through trading. So trade routes can generate you food. There's two ways that can work. The first way is having internal trade routes. So in the Mega City series, the only trade routes that I had, because I set that as a thing, I would have only internal trade routes. Oh, go away, stupid thing. Internal trade routes generate food, but it's not based on the food that the city is producing. It would be really cool if that was the case, because then you could have breadbasket cities that just produced crazy amounts of food, and then you could trade with your other cities to give them crazy amounts of food. Not how it works. The way that internal trade routes generate food for the city that the trade route originates from is based on districts at the city it's going to. By default, the city center adds one food to the food yield of an internal trade route. The other districts that add food to that are holy sites, I'm going to move it down here, theater districts, and entertainment complexes. Okay, so for each one of these that a city has, it's always going to have the city center. For each one of these that a city has, any trade routes that you make from another city to that city are going to generate food. So with all three of these districts, a trade route from one of your other cities. Oh yeah, I think I'm missing one actually. Oh yeah, harbors. Harbors are the other one. Let me get that in here. I almost forgot about harbors. Harbors also produce food, I believe. Yes, I do. Yes, I do. When it comes to internal trade routes. So by default, the maximum amount of food that an internal trade route can provide is 5. However, collectivization, it's an economic policy that's unlocked when you get, it's called class struggle. So once you get class struggle in the policy tree, you're able to add +4 food to your domestic trade routes. That makes the maximum amount of food that a domestic trade route can produce 9. Right? So if you have all 4 of these districts in a city and you have collectivization, then any trade routes from one of your other cities to this city is going to generate 9 food. Now, other than that, there's one more way that trade routes can generate you food. That's through a policy called Arsenal of Democracy. What that does is that any trade route that you have to an ally's city, now that's ally, that's not just any other outside trade route. You have to be trading with a civilization that you have an alliance with, will generate +2 food for your city and for their city. So it helps both of you, which means that if both of you are trading with each other, then you're each going to gain 4 food from that mutual trading, because your trade route will generate you food and them food, and their trade route will generate them food and you food, right? So Arsenal Democracy can be really good to have activated even if you're not doing trading with that ally. If they're trading with you, you're going to gain food, which is pretty cool. Now that we've talked all about food, let's discuss the theoretical maximum. This is always fun. How much food would it be? What is it possible for you to produce in one city if we only talk about tile improvements? Well, I just so happen to have that here. I mean, specifically farms, because as it turns out, once you have replaceable parts, which means you also have feudalism, there's nothing better than farms for producing food. Okay, once you get to replaceable parts, farms are where it's at for food. And in this example here, with all of these food numbers, we are assuming that every single one of these tiles is a grassland. Now, obviously, that's not going to happen unless you like custom make a terrain or something, or it's just keep re-rolling with like all the settings on the ideal for generating grassland. But if every single tile in your city is grassland and you build a farm on every single one, these are the yields for food that you're going to get. Okay, it gets up this high because of replaceable parts. So these tiles that are in the corners and only have 3 adjacent farms are getting only 7 food, whereas these ones gain 8, these ones gain 9. I keep saying these ones. These farms gain 9 because they can't have another one because of the city center, and then these tiles will all gain 10 food each if all these are farms, for a maximum possible food yield of 202 food. That's a lot of population, because remember that population costs what is it, each population costs 2 food. I don't remember what it is. I think it's 2. I think every additional pop requires 2 additional food. I think so. Don't quote me on that one. But 202 food is the most you can get out of a single city. Pretty crazy. It'd be fun to do. So, I hope you've enjoyed this episode on food. I hope that now you know everything you need to know about food so that you can plan your cities, you can plan out your farms properly so that you can generate all the food that you need in the fewest number of tiles. So thank you so much for watching. I'm SentinalH. Join our Discord if you're interested, especially if you want to play Civ with me. Like and comment the video if you enjoyed it. I'm SentinalH, and I'm signing out.